We now begin with the conference theme session on strategies for standards for sustainable development. This particular session will have 4 panel discussions on topics related with the overarching under the overarching theme of standards for sustainable development. This session has been put together by Ms. Pamela Kumar, Director General TSTSI, and the convener for the session. May I invite Pamela to please join us on the dais? Pamela needs no introduction, but it's my present duty to still introduce her. Pamela has been the Director General of TSTSI since 2017. She's also the visiting professor, Bharti Chair visiting professor at UIAT, Punjab University. Since her joining TSTSI as Director General in early 2017, TSTSI has made a mark in the global standards arena, already mentioned LMLC and 5GI. Under her watch, the 5GI, the TSTSI 5GI standard was developed, and later it's been merged with 3GPP. She's also driving a lot of initiatives at TSTSI, notably the standards-driven research, industry engagement, startup task force, developing standardization roadmap, etc. Under her watch, we've been actively engaging with DOT and global standards bodies, and we're also trying to work out a global standards engagement strategy for making sure that there is early alignment and harmonization of efforts globally. Thank you, Pamela, for sparing time to design this session and being here with us in person. This session is the first panel discussion in this session will be on leading the 6G standards to a sustainable future. This session will be chaired by Mr. Satish Chamadagni, past Vice Chair of TSTSI and currently with Reliance Jio. Satish was not able to travel to Delhi for some reasons. He's joining us online. Can we have Satish on the tool, please? If Satish can be focused on.
Hi, Bingo.
Satish is there with us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Thank you very much. Can we please bring him on the stage? Focus on him. AirMeet tool. He does not require focus, but still. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Satish, for joining us. Satish, if you want, I can introduce your panelists before we begin.
Please go ahead. Yes.
Thank you. So this session is going to talk about the leading the 6G standards towards a sustainable future. The IMT 2030, which is 6G work so far in the ITU working party 5D, is at the stage of vision and technology trends document. The direction of 6G is headed towards. The ITU working party 5D is working towards the IMT 2030 vision, technology trends, and providing a broad direction of what 6G might look like. This will lead to the formal IMT 2030 requirements and the key performance indicator work in 2023-24. It is important to understand the progress so far and see if there is a need for a course correction. This panel will discuss the net essence of the work done so far and the direction that ITU might want to take formally to complete the IMT 2030 requirements work. The panel will also be summarizing the work done at ITU so far in the 6G area. The panel will have speakers as follows: Mr. Abdul Qayyum from Telecom Engineering Center. Mr. Qayyum, if you could please join us on the dais. In the interest of time, I would not read through the introductions of all the panelists so that we can devote more time to the actual panel discussions. The speaker introductions, the panelist introductions have been put up on the conference website. We also are joined by Mr. Anil Prakash, Director General SI India, on this panel. And then we will have Mr. Georg Meyer from 3GPP joining us online. Can we please focus on Georg? Thank you, Georg, for joining us online. We have Mr. Giovanni Romano from ORAN Alliance joining us online. Giovanni, are we there? Yes. Thank you so much, Giovanni. We were supposed to have Mr. Shiv Kumar, Broadband India Forum, joining us in person, but unfortunately, he's not keeping too well. So he may be joining us online. I think he's there. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Shiv Kumar, for making time despite your ill health. And we have Vinod James, who's in this panel going to be representing COAI. Thank you, Vinod.
Hi, good afternoon.
Thank you. Over to you, Satish and Pamela, for running the session. Satish will run the session and...
Thank you.
Any team, would you like to please focus on Satish? And Satish, we will take the cue. We'll follow your cue for the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we have the key issue of sustainability in 6G. The general discussion around sustainability is very much in the focus, primarily because of the energy crisis that we are seeing and its impact on the data centers world over, or the data center investments, or data center shifting from one geography to another geography. And this is one of the key issues which will also highlight on the nature of deployments of 5G, because 5G is power intensive. And if you take into account the edge deployment or the data center deployment that goes along with the 5G network deployment, then it's a serious issue, of course. Yes. So naturally, sustainability is one of the key issues centering for us, especially with the discussion around 6G. And we have a very broad panel here, eminent panelists from across the industry and organizations. So the general understanding of sustainability, maps to consumption of power. That's one of the key understanding. But then there is the broader understanding of whatever gets developed as 6G will have to be consumed, in a sense that it's a generation of wireless technology, which will also have to cater to other issues such as relevant use cases. More irrelevant use cases developed means there is a lot of manpower which is getting into the specifications which will not necessarily see the light of day. So it's very critical to understand sustainability from a broader perspective. Satellite networks are coming into the play, and you also have Wi-Fi, and you also have private networks, and a lot of these other issues which are coming in. So sustainability especially for smaller entities like private networks, private entities who deploy networks or private networks, is very critical, because if it's sucking out a lot of power, then that becomes a blocker for much of such kind of deployments, which is supposed to be the mainstay going forward. So with these few initial words, I would like to start by defining what sustainability for this discussion is. Sustainability, of course, is power, as we understand, but it also means developing the right kind of architectures for 6G, making sure that it can cut across, it is lean, it can be deployed by private networks, anchored, may not necessarily be anchored by macro networks. Then there are issues of spectrum sharing. Then there is also the issue of having to leverage the state of the art in terms of the power amplifiers and other technologies. You have a lot of semiconductor technologies which are coming into the play. For example, gallium arsenide, gallium nitride based power amplifiers, which are supposed to be orders of magnitude more power efficient than the normal CMOS power amplifiers which are in use today. And these are very critical from a massive MIMO perspective as we go from 44R to 32T, 32R, and whatever in that direction. We also have AI/ML, which requires a lot of hardware crunching. Hardware means obviously a lot of power, and that's also something that has to be taken into account. So the overall topic of sustainability is a broad topic. It is not necessarily hooked to the issue of power consumption alone. It also touches upon the architecture of the network, nature of the network which will be developed. So that's where standardization comes into the play. And from that perspective, we do want to touch upon the two broad aspects of power saving, of course, but then again, choosing the right use cases, making it more open so that it's a bit more distributed, hopefully saving power as well. It has a lot of implications. when we talk of sustainability, it's a broad set of issues that will have to be addressed, including the nature of the technology that we will develop from a standardization perspective. So having said this, I would like to start the discussions with Mr. Govini Romano, who is from the ORAN Forum. He has a presentation, so I would kindly request him to make a presentation on the ORAN Forum and what they intend to do for 6G. And there is some activity which has started even in ORAN Alliance for 6G. So we would be very keen to hear. And Mr. Govini, so if questions, I will interrupt you for the questions. Thank you. The floor is yours, Mr. Govini.
Sorry, I was not able to unmute myself. Thank you very much. And I try to share again. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen. Yes.
Please. Okay, so for the sake of time, I would like to present only 2 slides of my presentation, when I will make available all the slides to the audience. One of the main points is the ORAN Alliance is defining an architecture. ORAN Alliance is a group that was created to open some interfaces that were not specified by 3GPP. So it's not in, let's say, in an antagonist of 3GPP, but is working in complement to 3GPP to provide some interfaces which are not open in 3GPP. So mainly what is most known is the open front door, so the interface between the distributed unit and the radio unit. But also, I would like to stress the importance of a non-real-time RAN intelligence controller and a near real-time RAN intelligent controller, which are 2 functions which are not specified by 3GPP, which ORAN Alliance is trying to specify, and providing the intelligence of the network. So the capability to improve the network performance and the efficiency of the network. Efficiency both in terms of capacity, but also we will see in terms of energy efficiency. The last slide I would like to present, sorry to be very short, is the current activity in ORAN. So there are already the ongoing activity on disaggregation enhancement, massive MIMO optimization, the sharing of remote radio units, and so on. But also there is the evolution towards and beyond 5G and 6G. So the working with industrial verticals, so the aspect related to industrial, in order to spur innovation, reach a solution ecosystem and optimization. And to do that, ORAN started a working group which is called NGRG, Next Generation Research Group, which is addressing the gaps we see inside the alliance towards the 6G. So that's it from my side. I think that this is just the main drivers for ORAN, the specification effort. So we are writing specification for these interfaces. Then there is an open software community which is providing some kind of background, common software implementation, and finally testing and integration to provide a verification of the technology. This is deployment and the trials. And finally, just if you want some more information, there is the website oran.org, or you can write directly to info.oran.org for more information. And of course, you can contact me directly. So for the sake of time, I hope I was not taking too much. I stop sharing and leave back the word to you, Satish.
Yeah, Mr. Giovanni, thank you. So some tough questions. ORAN Alliance specifications have not seen implementation yet. Is that right, or do you intend?
I would not say it is not right. I think that we already have some commercial implementation. For example, Rakuten in Japan is indicating they are fully ORAN compliant, but also in Europe, one is the fourth German operator is stating that we are greenfield operator, first of all, sorry to say that, but they are implementing ORAN-based infrastructure. Also in other countries, for example, TIM in Italy, my company is already having some ORAN compliant in commercial websites. Sorry, base station, not the website. Sorry, it's like more confusing. Some commercial implementation. So we have, for example, in small cities, first ORAN compliant commercial network there, operating there. So it's, I would say that we still have some road to make, but there are already commercially available solutions based on ORAN specification.
Thank you. So do you see the radio interface controller, the RIC entity, becoming central to sustainability? We've just seen the use case on self-organizing network being incorporated into the ORAN specification just recently. I mean, completely.
Yeah, I agree. For me, this is, let's say, my opinion, maybe not necessarily the opinion of the ORAN Alliance, but my opinion is that the radio controller is the key for the efficiency. It's something that allows to choose different implementation from different vendors, also to develop in-house solution from operators, which can have some better insight on the network, some more specialized solutions. So this is something that allows to implement to exploit artificial intelligence in managing the network, and is really going to provide the optimization we need for improving energy efficiency. So energy efficiency is not only switching on and off base station or having other kind of solution, but is having an intelligent management of the network. So using big data for that, artificial intelligence, and the best algorithm you can find in the market, developed by operators or developed by vendors, and use them as needed. So my answer is absolutely yes.
Yes, thank you. So how do you see ORAN Alliance emerging into 6G? Because if you look at our ITU specification, some of the use cases which are being tabulated within the IMT 2030 requirements, we see that openness, sustainability, some of these things are actually being drafted into the core requirements itself. Do you see that being addressed within 3GPP going forward in 6G, or how do you see the relevance of ORAN going forward?
Yeah, as I said, ORAN started a next generation research group, which is at the moment willing to take input from all the actors, especially from the academia, to better understand what is new and what can be done new in the RAN, in all these kind of open interfaces and so on. But also as an alliance, we foresee the importance to have the most efficient path towards the evolution to 6G. So it's exploiting what we already have to collaborate with 3GPP and other groups and other fora. But we want really to ensure that the next generation is efficient in terms of management. And again, the radio interface controller and so on are the key point, in my opinion, to have the best integration of different technologies and operation.
Thank you. And in the 6G efforts in ORAN, is sustainability one of the key issues being addressed?
Let's say the work on 6G in ORAN is just started, and being open to academia, I would say, unfortunately at the moment there is a little of focus on technology. So we really need to think more on sustainability. But yes, this is a topic we need to address, not only in ORAN, but everywhere, and to be a key aspect. As a sustainability, I'm not only indicating the energy efficiency, but all the aspect in terms of economic viability, possibility to deploy and to reach, let's say, a global coverage, and not focusing only on a rich area of the world, but everywhere. And for everywhere, I mean not only the big cities, which could be in rich areas or not rich areas of the world, but also the rural area, which are very important for everybody to be included in a sustainable growth of the world.
So you said you're primarily working with academia for the 6G. Any operator inputs also which is coming in? Because they are the ones who will foot the bill, energy bill. So.
Absolutely. NGRG is an open group, open to everybody. So we have, as in NORAN, we have both leaders from operators, from vendors, and from academia. I was saying that at the moment it was felt as a group to have a better input from academia, to better involve the academia. Sorry, just a second. Excuse me, speaking is a little harassing. But as I said, it was a way to better involve the academia, but of course the leaders are from operators and vendors, so it's not just an academic exercise. It's really something that we are looking forward to pave the road to 6G.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we would also like to hear from the industry. So I would like to switch to Vinosh James. Vinosh, welcome. And could you kindly share the thoughts from COAI perspective as to what you intend to do, what you want to see being done in 6G? And of course, there being a focus on sustainability as well.
Yeah, so thanks for the question, Satish. I think it's a very interesting question given how India is also set up. So I think it's the experience we gained with 5G deployments and with prior 4G deployments is that, we rely a lot on global standards. And more importantly, a lot of these networks deployment happen in a sort of, not coherent manner. We try to scale up, and then there are a lot of aspects which need to be bridged into. So as COAI, what we try to do with respect to this 6G standards, as well as with sustainability and others, is ensure that from the beginning, when the standard are getting designed, you ensure that sustainability is part of it, right? So even when engaging the National Study Group 5 and then making contributions to ITU and other places, COAI made representations, which is now captured into the working document, which basically states that, the candidate radio technology you design should have sustainability as a design imperative, one. And then you actually leverage tools like artificial intelligence and, support communication, sensing, and other related capabilities. So we want to ensure that, the industry participates in that engagement. All the academia and others participating in this engagement ensure that, they design technologies which will actually ensure that sustainability becomes a design imperative, meaning from day one, you start the network, it should be there. So that's one area where we play. And then, as vendors who also participate in COAI and other related engagements, we also ensure that, with new innovation and others getting into 6G, say, for example, be it better on-off designs for powering on and off, or, the way you explained, bringing in new powered amplifier designs, or having better AI ML integrated into the sensing system, bringing in sensors to actually ensure that, a lot of these leakages can be arrested. So quite a lot of these designs are being discussed in academia, in industry forums, in some of these operator and vendor platforms. So I think getting the vision recommendation is key, because that is then going to guide how the standards are going to be evolved.
Does COAI have any figures on what is the power consumption from a 5G perspective so far, and expected power consumption from base station overall perspective from a 6G perspective?
They haven't done that exercise yet, but I think it should be done. Yeah.
I think from moving from 4G to 5G, the order of magnitude increase in the power consumption of a base station is what, 4x?
10x.
10x. 10x. Yeah, that is substantial because as we roll out 5G, the power has to be provisioned. I think that's one of the key challenges that will be there.
Absolutely.
But what is expected of 6G then? 10x of what 5G is consuming, or?
Well, as you grow more and more in bandwidth, you are going to consume more power, right? And again, you have to develop on small cell and other deployments which need to be put up if you want to adhere to coverage. So what you try to actually lose in terms of more deployment or wider bandwidth, you try to optimize with more optimal designs, right? So as you would have noticed that from a always on 4G network, we moved ahead to design something which is resembling something like an on-off system in 5G. So you try to do more in the 6G front. And then, for example, beamforming is introduced. So that took care of some of the interference related aspects. So what was like noise and interference and power wastage on that, those things are now getting addressed, right? So I think we are taking that baby step now with 5G, and then we will start walking and probably running in 6G. That's how I can actually state. It's 6 years down the line, so a lot of opportunities. That's how CUI at least sees it.
Yeah, so basically, architectural changes is one of the key ways to address issues of power, moving from 5G to 6G. That's one of the key takeaways, I guess, from what you mentioned.
Yeah, it's architecture changes balanced with operator investment pattern, because we can design a perfect new architecture which is energy efficient, but if the operator doesn't deploy it, then we have to basically rely on the 4G or 5G system design. So it's a balance. So where we get there is yet to be known, but we have time to see how the design actually comes up. It's a great opportunity for us.
So do you see operator community within COAI trying to invest in new technologies like, say, for example, gallium arsenide power amplifiers or the smart materials to dissipate power better in base stations? How much of these new age technologies is getting adopted? Or are we still in the CMOS technology?
We are still in the nascent stage. I think there is a national dialogue happening, facilitated by the DOT itself, that we need to move there. And I think at least at the COAI, at the DG and DDG level, there are discussions happening, which I'm not privy to, but I know those discussions are happening. So I think maybe a year or two down the line, we will have more details on where India is investing in these places. But yeah, some early discussions are happening.
Okay, thank you. But there's no work as such which is coming out of COAI on these issues, right?
COAI is an industry body, right? We try to make the representation of our members, our operator members, as well as our industry members. And then we are MRP into 3GPP, and we have alliance with other sister companies within India as well. So we represent our members' interest. And, for example, the sustainability and UN goals, they are very important for the nation as well. So we represent those collective. But we are not a scientific organization. We take our requirements and expect those national bodies, international bodies, standards organization, including our partners in 3GPP and elsewhere, to basically make use of that and then give a solution which our members can use. So that's what we are.
Thank you. So just to emphasize to the listeners, it has to be understood that power is one of the key issues as far as the 5G base stations are concerned, primarily not just from a power perspective, but even from a weight perspective. Just to let you know that if you move from the power efficiencies of CMOS power amplifiers today is something in the order of around just about 20-30%. That means 70 to 80% of the power which goes into a power amplifier is dissipated as heat. It's going out as waste. So there are a lot of opportunities that has to be leveraged as far as these areas are concerned. And so obviously that means there is a lot of technologies that is going into dissipating this heat which is generated, which is waste heat, by the way, which is wasted energy, by the way. So there's a lot of heat sinks which go in, which increases the weight of the base stations. Just to give an order of magnitude, Dr. Vinod James said that it's 10x more power consumption in comparison to a LTE base station. 44-hour LTE base station is only about 4 or 5 kilograms, and LTE base station, 32hour base station, is something about 20 kilograms, which is state of the art, but non-optimal can go up to 40 kilograms. So that is extraordinarily high. So comes the energy consumptions. So so 10x, as you said, the increase in the power, that's something which is extraordinary, and that is not even taking into account the power consumed by the edge servers, edge data centers, as and when they get deployed, right? I mean, this is just the raw base station figures that you're talking about.
I would say moving from LTE to NR, you factor in more like 10x. It's a system
overall.
Yeah,
in the system view, not just the radio base station, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So that's an interesting thing, going from 5G to 6G. Whatever efficiencies that can be pulled out as far as the base station is concerned, is something that is going to be extraordinarily in the focus. So thank you, Vinosh. We would like to move to George Mayer, who represents 3GPP, and there's a lot of activity happening in 3GPP as far as release 18 and 19 is concerned, primarily from a power efficiency perspective, sustainability perspective. And there are a lot of functionalities also which fall in the perspective of sustainability. So, George Mayer, the floor is yours, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Satish. Can you hear me? Just
yes,
making sure. Yes, perfect. Thank you so much, and thanks for having me. So, I mean, in 3GPP, currently we have no official timeline for 6G, when we will start 6G, or what essentially will be the steps that we will be doing there. We started with release 18, where we are in the middle of it now, under the headline of 5G advanced. And we had this also in 4G, so I just want to say that once we get into this second phase of a generation, which is now called 5G advanced here, we practically looking at a number of technologies and a number of issues that most likely will be relevant in the next generation, in 6G, but so far have not taken center stage and have not been in our focus in that way as they will be then in 6G. And one of them is, of course, energy efficiency and more generally the whole sustainability issue, where we are looking for sure in the run already since quite a while with all sorts of technologies, MIMOs, lead modes, and so on. But I'm not a RAN person. My background is from the network, but also there we have activities already, like looking into sustainability, like network efficiency, self-organizing networks, the whole AI, machine learning are all issues that we are looking at from different angles, from architectural as well as OEM, but also security perspective. So these things are there, and I can only agree with what James said before. From my perspective, anything that runs under a true sustainability headline and is not just greenwashing, because we all know there is some sort of willingness also to just have headlines and practically not investing too much in related technologies. But if we take it serious, and I think we do, then it needs to be there right from the design phase. It needs to be an inherent part of the whole system. It's practically something that needs to be regarded as security. So security also will only work if it's thought of right from the start. And if it's not done, we fail. We have a system that is not fit to be deployed. And I think the same will be for sustainability in the future. But there's a bit more to it that I want to say from the perspective of 3GPP. I think we have a really broad look at the whole 5G, from my perspective, still 5G ecosystem. It will be the same for 6G. And we have attracted so many companies in the past to join us. and to work with us, like what we call the vertical industries. And when we look at those industries like cars, trains, factories, satellites, the public safety or first responders, many more, the whole set of IoT devices, all of them are working in one way or the other with 5G technology. They have set their future on that card, I think very successfully, but we also see that these products are currently still in the making. They're being rolled out under the 5G headline. Now, one part of sustainability that I also would like to see is that we really look at the devices. We also look at the services that we are developing on top of the network, not just like the network itself. So it's really the whole ecosystem end to end. And we also need to be aware that the rollout on these whole industrial usage and the whole global industrial usage of the mobile network happens on 5G. So 6G also needs to make sure that these technologies and these devices can be sustained. We cannot allow ourselves to come up with something completely new that practically would force train manufacturers, car manufacturers, to replace the technologies that they just put into their equipment. So I think there is a number of challenges that we need to look into, and part of that, for sure, as I said before, is energy efficiency and self-organizing or like AI networks. Yeah, I think that's more or less from my side. So again, we don't have a fixed timeline yet, but we have for 6G. But I think the issues we are looking at are very close to what runs under 6G headlines in 3GPP. And also, we are usually very close to the deployment phase. So usually the standards that we are developing can be in the market as workable products within 1 year, 1.5. So therefore, I think it's fair to say we are looking at it now, and we will for sure deliver on the 6G promise. Thank you.
Thank you, George. And so far the core network has been. There's not been much of a focus as far as the energy efficiencies of a core network is concerned. But then going forward, there is a lot of data center integration happening with the core network. There is a lot of AI processing which is coming in primarily for deep packet inspection kind of stuff. So essentially, the core is really becoming a data center. Even the non-real-time RIC, the ORAN intelligent RIC entity, also sits. Essentially, it sits in the core network, though it is called as an edge. It sits in the core network. So, but we've never had any emphasis on some kind of an architectural constraints on carbon emission from a core network, or we've never been discussing anything in this direction. Do you foresee new KPIs coming in which will say, okay, come up with an architecture which will make sure that not more than so many metric tons of carbon is used in any core network deployment scenario for a given population, etc., some such thing, or any views on those?
So, of course, it's hard to predict the future. But first of all, I think we have the sustainability issues already also now in release 18 in work items, for example, in SA5, where we look at the orchestration and management of the system, where I think when people say it needs to be deep down in the architecture, they're usually looking into SA2, where I agree we need to have awareness of these issues there. But my first go at energy efficiency and organizing the network would be to SA5 and say, how do we enable the network to self-organize? How do we enable the measurements in the network to be aware where we can do better and so on? And I think there we are, let's say, starting, but I fully agree that we need more on that. And my understanding is that the current crisis that you mentioned before as bad as it is, it has most likely the side effect that people are really honestly focusing on this now because there is a true need to do that. We are contribution driven. So we are not setting our headlines like years ahead and say, these are the visions that we have. We are really driven by what the company is bringing in. From the discussions we had over the last 2 years, I can say the need for energy efficiency is much more discussed than it was before. It became an issue that we also handled on SA level itself. So I'm confident this is an issue that is going forward and will get much more attention in the future. But again, if companies are interested in that, then they need to contribute on this issue. We are really, we can only handle those issues where people bringing in contributions.
Yeah. Thank you, George. We would like to ask Mr. Anil Prakash from SAI to share his thoughts on the emergence of satellite networks and sustainability goals it can help achieve. Of course, sustainability goals in the sense that at least they don't use power. They are driven by solar cells. But the thing is, the initial cost of launching and sustaining these satellites, or whatever your thoughts are on the whole business of sustainability, one part, and then the second part being 6G. How do you see satellites, emerging from a 6G connectivity perspective? Thank you. The floor is yours, Mr. Anil.
Hello. Thank you, Satish. I just wanted to cite a very beautiful report which IEEE Access has recently produced, and it touched upon satellite for 5G and sustainable. I think this topic is very relevant, which TSDIs in Deep Tech they have chosen for it. And I just wanted to read through some of this report, a beautiful study which they have conducted, especially for European but I think it's applicable more a lot for all. So the report says, while the space activities are rapidly increasing, it's important to make operation in sustainable and safe way in order to preserve satellite service for future. Technology trends in satellite communication includes onboard processing and use of ever higher frequencies enable high throughput satellite to fulfill growing data demands. The two main disruptions are currently driving the development and rapid growth of satellite communications are increasing satellite constellations, size and integration of satellite and terrestrial network. The format aimed to provide broadband service to currently underserved area and improve performance. The latter is related to evolution of mobile network where different wireless and wire technologies coverage. This creates a vast amount of new opportunity in different application fields such as public safety, digital health, logistics, and internet service in developing countries. The annual space business related to 5G and now 6G generation of communication system is expected to grow more than 500 billion euro during the next 2 decades. This is more than current entire space business, including scientific missions, Earth observation, and navigation. At the same time, the whole space sector is in transformation phase due to the so-called new space economy. Significant reduction in launch cost and easy and affordable access to space have attracted new innovative players to the space business, that's low Earth orbit system and small satellites. In particular, the increasing rapidly, the most typical orbit height are about 500 kilometers. But there are significant efforts to also use very low Earth orbits. The report can to say that there is very low LEO provides sensing and communication services that's so-called Kármán line, defining where the atmosphere ends and space begins. in about 80 kilometers, and our orbiting object can survive multiple perigee passages and altitude to around 80 to 90 kilometers above. Small satellites in range of 8 to 200 kg can be seen as a sweet spot since they are large enough for payload to support broadband communication or synthetic aperture radar SAR imaging. So what I mean to say that the space system sustainability, there are not only technical deliveries, but drivers, but development of multi-layer 6G network. It is essential to develop services and technology in sustainable way to ensure high quality services. Also the coming generation, to mention a few examples, according to International Telecommunication Union, only half of the world population has access to broadband services, about 250 kilobit currently. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown that video communication provides means for peace, people, and businesses.
So Mr. Anil, what does sustainability mean from a satellite perspective? I mean, specifically,
I think
not
it's
just our consumption, but if I may ask, what is the lifespan of a LEO satellite? You were talking about 8 to 200 kilogram satellites. In about 5 years, they'll be dead, right? They'll be waste, which will be hovering in the space.
Yeah, you're right, because now the orbit or deorbiting technologies are developing. Now the satellites you can retrievable, and when they are into the LEO orbit, it's easy to deorbit than the geo orbit, which is much higher from the Earth. So we are very good, and I think this is going on. Space debris is a common threat or common problem for all the nations, and there is already multilateral the task is going on to work with how we can build it, because we understand there is a something which is now we are for fourth place, which is space we're talking about. I think that's also need to decongest. There's already a lot of congestion is already there. There's already space debris are flowing around. Yeah. So I think this follows the same economic principle which sustainable development has, that is the social and the economic and environment. We are all, it has applicable to the 5G or 6G. It's the same applicable to the satellite.
So is there any government norms evolving as far as the deorbitization of satellites? Because every 5 years, you have to put in new satellites. That means the old satellites are gone.
So, you're right. That's why there's a deorbiting, because technology. I think I'm very proud to say that the Indian scientists have taken a lead into this direction, and they are also the dead satellite, which is the lifespan. The satellite's lifespan goes because when they lost the battery, and it's very difficult to change their things. So, but the technologies which is our space scientists or private space scientists have developed, that's really taking it into the world by surprise, and they can also energize the dead satellites, and they can bring and deorbit them. Okay. So this is not just alone for India. This is a common for everyone. So we are aware that India is a late entry into space sector. We have very few satellites, which is when more and more is going to be up in the sky. So I think we are equally concerned about thing, and the government and according to the private scientists, we are all working with the new methods, new technology on deorbiting. That's all working for that.
Thank you, Mr. Anil. Thank you for your thoughts. Finally, coming to Mr. Shiv from Broadband Forum and Mr. Avinash from the government. So these are regulatory related issues. There are tons of issues which are driven by regulation. And just to summarize, the government of India, the Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, has pledged that India will cut carbon emissions by 1 billion tons by 2030. And this was in the UN Climate Change Conference, COP26 in Glasgow, which happened in this year, last year, November. So this is an extraordinary amount of commitment that India has made as far as the carbon emission is concerned. But the point is, with respect to the amount of or the percentage of carbon emission reduction that the telecommunication industry can show. So my question to Mr. Shiv from Broadband Forum and Mr. Avinash from the government Is the government moving towards any such direction where we say that, okay, 5G or 6G should only have so much amount of carbon emission, so many metric tons of carbon emission only allowed, kind of a direction? Are we moving towards such direction? Either Mr. Shiv or Mr. Binash.
No, Satish, we have Abdul Qayyum from the.
Oh, not Mr. Okay.
Qayyum.
Sorry, Abdul Qayyum. Yeah, sorry, Mr. Abdul Qayyum. Either yourself or Mr. Shiv. Or I would say, Mr. Abdul Qayyum, yourself representing the government. I think you're the right person to be.
This one is good.
Thank you, Mr. Satish. Actually, I would like to answer some of the questions you asked to the previous speakers, and that is because of my experience with energy efficiency. In Telecom Engineering Center, we came out a very comprehensive standard, that is energy consumption rating and energy passport. So during the development of that document, the learning which we had, I'll share with that. First, that we did a study of few operators, how much energy they consumed in the last 5 years with the regulatory requirement. So when we calculated it, actually they have already met by the time the regulation was released. And the trick was that the way energy efficiency is defined, they will meet. They don't really need to do anything. So when we are going for 6G and we are going to have AI ML, which is known, power guzzler, and having another dimension of having sustainability, we should be really very specific that kind of definition we give. If you give a definition which is something like energy consumed divided by the throughput, so it is already met. Really, the manufacturer don't need to do anything; it will be met. So the experience, from the data which we gathered, since last 5, one of the company, absolute, in terms of absolute power, its power consumption doubled. Right. Whereas in terms of the, as I said, the regulatory requirement, they had already achieved. So what was the, though if you see in terms of carbon emission, it is detrimental to the environment. But for the, as you say that in their sustainability report, they admit that company is more sustainable than before, right? But whereas the net carbon emission was twice. And the other aspect which we talk about is that we will be taking care with green energy. Though during that those period, the green energy portfolio that rose to only 38%. So we should be really careful when we are writing KPI for 6G and how we are going to actually regulate. None of the manufacturers are ready to benchmark their products. None of the operators, they are ready to benchmark their products in terms of energy. So if we are really interested in having sustainability as one of the goal in 6G, as Mr. Mayor said, it should be actually written in the code itself. What is happening so far? Standards are 3GPP standards are released, and then committees are set up to write standards which will take care of power consumption, energy consumption, efficiency, EMF radiation, all harmful effects. That is a later afterthought. So what can you do in that? The codes are already written, products are made as per those codes. So what kind of improvement or what kind of sustainability we can we are going to have from the products. So we are pushing, if you see the 6G vision, AI is everything, everywhere, everything is AI. So that means without AI, we are not going to do anything. AI will do everything. And we know that how much power is required, to sustain such kind of, is it really required by the society? Is it really required by our networks? That we should really think. If you are thinking in terms of society, in terms of environmental protection, if you are thinking the only one dimension, that is the economic prosperity, then it's okay. So the data actually, doesn't suggest that the way we are moving in communication, it is going to a sustainability. The share of the power consumption of data center is almost same as the RAN network, the RAN part. And this data center is rising at the rate of 20%. So I think in few years' time, this is going to even overtake RAN. So whatever efficiency or gain you might achieve through better radios, that may be lost, by introduction of AI. So the requirement, actually the user requirement should be very clearly spelled out, that how much AI is actually required in the network.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Qayyum. So that is, in fact, one of the key statements that you made, that these things will not be captured as far as the initial requirements itself is concerned. When we design the core network or the radio network for 6G, these are the ones which will have to be burnt or printed in bold letters, so that they drive the overall architecture, they drive the overall design. And there are certain specific numbers that can be pegged to the overall network from an overall network perspective. But from a government perspective, do you have any numbers pegged? You said, you have a white paper that was flouted by just
what I said, that the power, see, LTE is far superior, efficient technology than the 2G, that is known. But the power consumption doubled. The absolute power per consumption doubled.
Yes.
So, but it is efficient. So what I my request to the 3GPP and other body will be, so let us not fool ourselves. Sustainability should be clearly spelled out in the codes, as I said. When you are writing the code, it is not that you mention at one place in the 3GPP document, it will not help. It has to be written in the codes. How are you going to design? And for example, if we conceive a particular architecture, whether the requirement of power consumption, minimum power consumption, is the first priority, or it is not prioritized. So if we prioritize the power consumption is the first priority in the code, then okay, the rest thing will take care. Whereas if we put that spectral efficiency is, let's say, is the priority, so the things with the AI will do the calculation in a very different way. It is how we ask the AI to do.
So yes, thank you. ITU is finalizing some of these key requirements, and the activities are yet to start. But this is the right time where we get some of these numbers and we actually peg some of the numbers. What is your expectations are moving from 5G to 6G? So you said 2G to 4G doubled, but from 5G to 6G, it should just be a 20% increment, 30% increment. Do you have any expectations as to what it should?
See, I have been to, at least in last 3-4 months, I have visited at least a dozen universities, right? And premier universities, IITs. The question is, why do we need 6G? Is the first question. Why do we need 6G? See, if you are having a terahertz communication, it will work for few few centimeters. That is the the questions. So first of all, we have to clear our doubt how much 6G is going to be beneficial. That actually, our universities, our industry, they should they will actually be answering this. We are just trying to understand what they are thinking of, and accordingly, government take a decision based on the input or the intelligence which we get from the industry. So power consumption, see, we have seen in number of transceivers, it is multiplying when you are going for higher higher frequencies. That is quite obvious. So if you have base station at current, the way we are, we from the past experiences, we will be having at least 20 to 30 times the number of BTS which we are having at present.
Yes.
Thinking that we have all the bands of frequency, that something will be for coverage as we have today, and some new things will come for the new applications. But the kind of technology that is going to come, if we continue with the the way we are doing it currently, you can have 20 to 30 times. But if it is changed differently, if we are able to change our if we can have more of optical communication in 6G, perhaps power consumption requirement will drastically reduced. So
Yes.
that is one thought which is going on, and that may be a savior as far as sustainability is concerned, if we are able to have a breakthrough and we are able to use optical technology the way we are using RF
Yeah.
for mobility.
So yeah, optical communication is one of the key issues which are under discussion. Visible light communication essentially is under
Yeah.
discussion in 6G.
Yeah.
It's one of the candidate technologies, though not finalized. But these are relevant points which are under discussion in ITU, and I think your inputs are good. This will help us take the right contributions to ITU, where the discussions are happening right now. So I think ITU is the right forum, and your inputs have been very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Qayyum.
Satish, I just wanted to interrupt while the discussion is just livening up, and we are finding some actions or recommendations. We just have another 5 minutes for this panel.
Great. We started late, so we're going to take another 5 minutes. Thank you. So the final question to Mr. Shiv. You represent a Broadband India Forum, which is in part a lobby group. Are you getting the right inputs from your members to be able to influence the government or influence bodies like 3GPP, ITU, where the discussions are happening right now on the issue of sustainability in 6G? Any thoughts, Mr. Shiv, on this? Is Broadband Forum really trying to consolidate some of these numbers, thought process, so that they can be an influencing body?
Is Shiv Kumar on the line? We don't see him.
He was.
Is Mr. Shiv Kumar still with us? Broadband India Forum. He was there sometime back when we started the panel.
I think he's dropped.
Has he dropped off? He was not too well. Can the organizers, conference tool organizer, please? Can you confirm if Mr. Shiv Kumar is still there with us in the tool?
No.
Oh, he seems to have dropped off. So perhaps maybe.
So let me start consolidating some of the findings from this. So 6G is in the early stages, and sustainability should be one of the key parameters on which 6G is designed. Multiple inputs have come in today on the nature of the evolution of the core network, some of the advances which will feed into the radio network, to meet the sustainability requirements. And then there is the regulatory aspect as well. And the government has certain expectations as far as what amount of power demands that a new generation of technology should pose on the national resources. And that's one of the key issues that has to be addressed, taken to ITU. These discussions are happening today in ITU. But I think 3GPP, also 3GPP forums like ORAN Consortium are also consolidating some of these inputs. COAI is consolidating some of these inputs, and these are inputs which needs to be taken to ITU as key requirements from day one, as Mr. Qayyum emphasized, and as Mr. Gregor Mayer also mentioned. We will have to mention, we will have to capture all of these very clearly in the ITU specification, so that then they trickle down to bodies like 3GPP and then the ORAN Alliance. So with these thoughts and hoping that all of these inputs can be consolidated within ITU as far as the key KPI is concerned, I would like to thank Gregor Mayer, Giovanni Romino, Vinosh James representing COAI, and Mr. Anil representing the Satellite Forum, Mr. Qayyum representing the government thoughts. Thank you very much for the panel for bringing out all the key points which we would like to consolidate and hopefully try and take to ITU and have it all written in bold points as far as the specification is concerned. Thank you very much. Bindu, do we have time for any public questions?
So we do have 2 questions in the chat window, and if there are any questions in the room, we have maybe we can take out 5 more minutes and see if the questions can be answered. Are there any questions from the room? Please raise your hand. Okay, we have a question from Mr. Vipin Tyagi. Please, can we give the mic to Mr. Tyagi?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, friends. I have a question regarding the handset standard and how what will be the kind of limit that we'll put on the transmission levels and the power consumption on the 6G, because as we know that the power is paid off by the service provider on one end and the consumers at the other end. With the kind of digital signal processing that is going on, the kind of heat sink technology that we have at this point, the kind of built up of the cell phones today, I think this is going to be a major challenge. Consequently, the question is, are there any standards required for the UE in terms of the sustainability?
Mr. George Mayer or Govini, whoever, please.
Yeah, if I may, I think Chairman takes the question if nobody else does.
No, yeah. Giovanni, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. This is not directly dealt with within ORAN, but I talk more with 3GPP at being active in RAN. So RAN is very active in providing studies on more efficient UE performance. So there was a RIS-17 activity already finalized. The RIS-18 is still working on energy efficiency for UE devices. But there is also an important point which was raised from a government and in general, the fact that the life cycle of devices should be increased. So not to have some kind of, let's say, life cycle designed at the beginning. So after a few years, the device is not working anymore. But we really need to look to some kind of design which is ensuring a long life cycle, a possibility to upgrade to better technologies via firmware and software, and also to reuse and recycle the components rather than wasting them in somehow. So it's not another alliance question, but more from 3GPP and other perspective. But yes, there is a lot of work on energy efficiency for devices. but also we have to look to the life cycle and how to avoid wasting and reuse the material as much as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree. Ms. George Mayer, do you have any thoughts on this, or?
No, I think, as I said before, I think Giovanni is the one who, for the RAM part, to perfectly answer that, and I think this covers
Okay.
it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. COEI, would you have any thoughts on that, James?
Yeah.
I will keep it apolitical. So yes, standards will be needed, and those standards will come. I think we still have time for it. So it's a combined package, both for the RAN as well as for the devices. That sustainability will have to be a design imperative. That's what we are asking.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
There are none. Actually, there are none. As far as efficiency is concerned, there are no standards for UE.
So maybe I can say one more thing on this whole issue, what also was mentioned before. I understand that we are talking about the ITU and things trickling down, but still I want to repeat, whatever requirements people have in their mind or see as necessary, they really need to actively contribute to the related standards bodies. It's not that we are doing those things automatically just because they are written in some white paper or requirements paper. So we need your input. And I think what is good about this conference is we're looking into these things now, like we're starting these activities now on a certain basis. We will develop that further. So it's a very good time to get active in 3GPP, in ORAN, wherever you think is the right forum to do. So I think it's not just about talking what the standards body needs to do, but really to activate yourself and activate the people who have a similar mindset as you, bringing them to actively contribute. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
One of the thinking that I have is that whatever is the present per person consumption on the UE devices should actually be retained, at least, if not improved going forward. At least that we can ascertain. People having 2 smartphones, each one of those, and smartphones are going to be more and more capable going forward. Consequently, if we can cap the energy consumption by these UE devices to the current level and then measure it in that unit. So we say that this is what is the current average level that we have and how much up or down we are going on that. Then it will bring about the real objective reduction in the carbon emission or the pocket of the consumer.
Actually, we have a standard for smallest fixed devices.
Yeah.
But we don't have, standard for this mobile devices.
No, going forward, it is anticipated that majority of the devices in 6G will be fixed devices. The mobile handset form factor would more or less remain the same, but then again, the fixed form factor is the one which will change. But again, we'll have to see what is the percentage in that sense. Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. Do we have any other questions, please?
Satish, we do have some questions, but okay, can we take one more question from the on-site? And I would request questions which are being posed in the online tool, if those can be responded to online. Or we will keep a record of these questions and post them to the panelists separately. And the responses can be provided as part of the conference report. We have a question from on-site.
Yeah.
This will be the last question. I'm sorry for cutting the discussion short.
Thank you very much. I'll be brief. And I am Saxena. I used to be working for a telecom company, BSNL, and I was on the board. See, what I'm increasingly finding is that with the upgradation of technology, the handsets and some of the devices which common people use is getting obsolete. Now, what we did in the past in terms of the network infrastructure was that many times we were upgrading it through software alone. Now, I just gave it a thought. Maybe it appears very naive, but I think it may be very relevant because in India, very large number of people are using these phones and these are getting obsoleted the moment technology changes. Can we not think of a universal hardware which is upgradable through software as and when the technology changes? Maybe it looks naive, but I think there's a need to give thought to such simple ideas. Thank you.
Yes, there was a lot of industry initiative in terms of trying to make configurable phones. There was even a Motorola specification, which is an industry standard, which was not necessarily a so-called specification from a 3GPP perspective or any such thing. But they did not fly in the market. That was the key thing. And there are still some who say you can replace your cameras, you can replace your batteries, of course. I mean, that is easy. There are pieces of the phone which can be replaced, pluggable. You can just plug in, plug out different features. Those things where the industry has tried some of these things, but has not taken off for whatever other reasons. And of course, as far as the satellites are concerned, yes, that makes a lot of sense for a software-defined radio based architecture, which is driven by open radio. In fact, Open RAN is also a consortium which has a working group called as the Open Radio Consortium Working Group 8, and they are working on open hardware specifications on which you can have some kind of a virtualization machine, and just about every single functionality becomes an application. That is a direction which is happening right now as far as the base stations are concerned, and there is a working group within ORAN. So Giovanni, would you like to add anything to that? So reusability is a factor which is coming into the play as far as 5G so-called Open RAN is concerned, but definitely in 6G that will be a factor which will be accounted for. Yes.
Sorry, if I got correctly the question, it's more on devices. So ORAN at the moment is not focusing on devices, but more on the network side. But I tend to agree. I think that also Georg Mayer indicated that the industry cannot change their devices every few years or every 2 years, and also people have to rely on solutions. So I completely agree with the statement that some kind of firmware or software upgrades of the devices could be a solution to make a longer life for the activity. The only problem could be that a general purpose hardware maybe is not so optimized like a specialized hardware, and this is something that we are also discussing in ORAN from the network perspective again. But it's something that is important to optimize the energy consumption. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you very much. So in summary, sustainability is a key element which can drive a whole set of specifications as far as the device is concerned, as far as the radio network is concerned, as far as the core network is concerned, as far as the application servers are concerned. And here is a convergence where regulatory bodies, government regulatory bodies will have a substantial role to drive some of the key KPIs, which can in turn drive the technologies and the use cases in ITU, 3GPP, Open RAN Alliance, and all such bodies, COAI, BIS. And these forums, representing the lobby side, which will play an effective role in trying to ensure that specifications or KPIs falls into place. So these are early days, but then these are really nice inputs which we can take to ITU. ITU KPI specifications are yet to begin. So right timing, and my sincere thanks to Georg Mayer and Giovanni Romino and Vinosh, Mr. Qayyum, for all the inputs from your side. We will take this into account as far as the Mr. Anil from a satellite perspective. So we will take all these inputs to ITU, hopefully. And thank you very much from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Satish.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank you.
before we conclude the session, may I request Pamela, the convener of the session, to please felicitate the speakers who are with us in person. Mr. Abdul Qayyum. Mr. Anil Prakash. Thank you so much. And can we have a photograph of the speakers on stage? And if we can have all the panelists who are here in the AirMeet tool. Can we also invite Dr. Kumar Sivarajan to please join us on the stage? Okay. Can we have the photograph, the panelists, please, on the tool? Can they be highlighted? Can they be? Okay. Can we get the panelists on the main screen, please? AirMeet. Thank you very much. When we started designing these panels, we didn't realize that the discussions would, unearth so many very interesting and maybe some comfortable, some uncomfortable questions. But thank you very much for this panel. We will now begin with the next panel, which is on regional use cases. Mr. Balaji from Vodafone Idea, who will be chairing this session, is already in the room. We will just